I keep my pencil work light. This is the sketch I did. That's what I'm going to follow. I want to capture here some of the energy that's in the sketch. And this can often be quite difficult. But if we bring it down to those narrative lines. So let's think about this, these two fish. I want one of the tails to definitely be going off the edge of my paper. So I'm thinking about that curve as this lower fish sort of leads up to my focal point. So that's what I'm going to think about first, is where is that curve? Not worry about where is the fish. Worry about where the curve is, where these narrative lines are going to sit. And I know that the other fish is going to sort of sit, the head is going to sit a little higher than that one, curve down, and then we've got this overlap around here, maybe a little stronger than that. So I'm just going to very lightly, I need to just make sure that that's definitely where I want things. And I'm trying to, in my mind's eye, picture the fish over the top of these two lines. Do I feel like they're in the right place? That might be a touch high up. So I might just lower that a little, pull this one back to here a little. Notice how I can make that correction so easily because I haven't drawn a fish. I can do it very easily because I've only drawn a line. I can erase this line at a later point, or now if ever. Okay, now of the two fish, this higher one, the one that's a little further up in the composition, is the more important fish. Still very loose. And by loose, I am not holding the pencil here. This is really important. You'll get too rigid too soon and you'll lose the energy. If you hold the pencil back here, you can't get too detailed. You can't get down into the little nitty gritty because the pencil's too bendy. Yeah? So holding it loosely and halfway back helps to allow some energy to travel through your piece. And notice I'm not holding the pencil upright, I'm holding it down. My hand is nicely at rest on the paper as I think about these sort of narrative curves still before I'm thinking about fish. I want this tail to sort of spread out here like it is in my sketch. I know I want this tail to spread out coming off the edge of the paper. The lightness of the pencil work is kind of key to this because even though it's scribbly, it's because I know at some point I am going to have to start erasing some of my rougher lines. Once I've got this kind of narrative, then I need to just start thinking about the shapes I need that start making it a fish. We know that there are fins, we know that there's details up in the head. I know that there is this sort of crest, this top crest. What I'm trying to say here is I'm going to start thinking about the bigger shapes before I start going into the littler shapes. And the littler shapes are things like where the gill might be, or where the eye might be, or where these little whiskers might be. Those are the small shapes. We get smaller and smaller as we go along. I mean, I've already indicated in my sketch here where the fin is. I need it to look a bit more accurate here. And there is certainly an elegance to the shape of these fins, which I want to capture. So I know that the fin is going to sit sort of just back behind the gills here somewhere. So I'm imagining the drawing further ahead where those things might be. And I know this fin is going to sit somewhere around here. And I know that if I take the contour of the body to the other side, I can then see where the other fin on the other side of the body is going to sit. So I've got my fins roughly in the right place, definitely not the right shape just yet, but they're roughly in the right place. There's a bit of artistic license going on, and feel free to play with that. So I'm gonna pop myself a couple of little fins just here, sort of close to where these bodies are going to overlap. Just to add a little bit of exciting interest there at this point. A secondary focal point, you know, where these are going to overlap. Okay, so I've got this bigger shape of the fins here. I know that there's this cresting, this dorsal fin that sort of sits here. And I'm just going to give myself a nice zigzaggy sort of line that's going to follow the curvature of that narrative line. So I've got that rough idea of where the fin is going to sit. I think probably my next biggest shape really is going to be figuring out where that gill sits. And I know it's going to be just here at the in front of the fin I've drawn, and I know that there's going to be an eye somewhere towards the front of the face, and I know there's going to be one of those little whiskers here. And then the same as I did here, just thinking about that shaping of the fish itself, following the line through, so I know that the other gill is going to sit somewhere around here. The other eye is going to sit on the other side of the body, but it's slightly bulbous, so I might just pop that in there, and I might see a little bit of the whisker from that side as well. This is me just imagining the line that I'm actually drawing here. Take a moment, sit back, decide if everything is in the right place. Now lean forward. I start holding the pencil in a more appropriate position so that I can actually start doing my drawing more accurately. And I want to create a draw line now. Because I'm holding the pencil further forward, I'm going to use more pressure. So the line itself will be apparently darker, and therefore read against what we call these construction lines. At this stage, it shouldn't really matter where I start. If I want to warm up a little bit, I might start down here where it's less important. But for the demo, the important part, I think, is up here in the head and these sort of fins. So I'm going to start on this kind of back edge of the fish itself. I've got my reference material around me, so I've got a visual stimulus of shapes and ideas I might want. I know that there's this sort of gill sits out here on the back side of the fish. I can't see the gill because it's kind of on the other side of the fish. Just this suggestive little bump tells me that there is a feature there. So this is me picking a spot where I can kind of warm up. Here's probably the other eye that might be a little bulbous. I do think it's worth just taking a moment to look at the shape of the muzzle, the nose end, mouth end of the fish. The koi seem to have this kind of lump on top of their head, a big bulbous sort of head that then dips down and has this flattened front to their mouth, a wide mouth. So that's sort of what I'm after at this stage. I have done a little bit of drawing. I went on and I did some more sketches of fish and their faces, so I could just have an understanding, an idea of what the actual anatomy is there. Just trying to understand what the real fish looks like. That was just a bit of a Google search to help me understand that, because I've drawn that out once in my library of images, and I can remember that as I work into these drawings here. So for example, have these little whiskers kind of coming from here and going back. But if you look at the real fish, they're kind of more here, almost going forwards like a catfish in some instances. Okay, the eye, quite this sort of deep ridge that gives them a sort of a frown almost. And I enjoyed that. That was a little bit of aesthetic I quite like playing around with. And the roundness of the eye. So that's what I'm working on now when I'm talking about these getting smaller and smaller with your shape language. These lines now, those original construction lines are visually disappearing because these stronger lines sitting over the top of them. That's me now carrying on and just thinking, okay, follow my shape of my kind of gill there. There's a little bit of my own developed style of how I draw shapes. I can't teach you that, how I move my pencil. How I hold my pencil, I can explain to you why, but how I move it is something that's just developed over years from all of these drawings that I've done over the years. There is this sort of ridge that sort of sits somewhere on the back of the head here and kind of comes down into the gill area. I just want to suggest that maybe. Then I've got this side of the body. I feel like that's pretty much in the right place. What I want to do is draw a fin more accurately. What I do know is the fin sort of sits up on the side of the body. It's raised up around that curvature. So I know that I want to have side of body here, but the fin itself sitting just a little further up. So this little Y shape. A lot of drawing involves C shapes and Y shapes, and here is your Y shape. And this gives us the impression of overlap. Something is overlapping something else. So this fin sort of comes back and then curves around elegantly, cuts in and then back up onto the body itself. The body then carries on around, it's going to pop out around here, and the body itself is a pretty just smooth, elegant, curving line. So from there on in, we're all okay, and down here we just whoosh. Down here we're just going to be, we don't worry about accuracy down there. This is part of the playground. Why do we do that? Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about painting. That's because this is a focal point. So we want the extra bit of work going to here, because that's what will stimulate the human eye to look there. We're telling the people who are going to buy the painting where to look, what makes them stop. Down here isn't important. Down here is just fun. So there's a couple of little anatomical elements I've added here on the fin. Again, that is just from my library up here. That's just the creature designer in me, you know. Now, over this side of the body, of course, I won't see this where the fin is connecting. What I will get is some representation of that shape mirrored on the other side. I know that I'm probably going to see the hump of the fin here, and I know I'm going to see this sort of descending shape, something like this here, and then the cut back as it comes back up here. But I'm not likely to see this part of the cutting because it's hidden by that side of the body. This is me thinking in the 3D world. This is where my reference comes in. What can I and can I not see? That, by and large, is the fish. I will refine my fin, but it really is just a case of just drawing this out a little better and lightly rub. Yeah, lightly rub. And just start taking out the marks that you know that